Welcome back. You're watching Big Deal, and we are discussing the newly proposed digital competition law. Now, getting to Dinoo, you heard so many, points of views on the Google development. What's your view on that? A quick take and the recommendations that you would give to the committee for the changes as it goes for the passage of legislation. You're on mute, Dinoo.
Thank you. Thanks, Nisha. I think we need to understand that what is the principle of this law. The principle of this law is that to minimize any time lags in intervention and ensure speedy redressal for companies. Now, in the context of the Google case, look, the case started in 2020. There was a CCI order of 2022. It's alleged that there's been non-compliance with that order, which is a separate pending proceeding. The CCI's order itself is stuck in an appeal process at the very court of first instance. So by the time it reaches the Supreme Court, relief for smaller app developers dependent on Google and dependent on the Play Store will be left high-strung. So the concept of the law at its very base is to give you timely intervention.
Yes.
And big tech has also, prior to big tech becoming big, has knocked on the doors of antitrust when they were smaller companies.
Right.
So what is good for the goose is sauce for the gander.
Yeah, okay. All right. Naval, any recommendations from your end?
So timely intervention is really sort of the most important aspect of this law. And because this law goes back to the CCI for everything, unless the CCI staffing is beefed up, nothing is going to change. My recommendations, the first one, and I actually represent companies who act against Google in courts and before the commission, but my first recommendation is do not enact this law. The second one is if you are enacting the law, then first, let's not have all this delegated legislation. All the obligations currently are being left to the CCI through regulations to enact. It is something which requires significant participation from investors, company executives, consumers. That process needs to be a very exhaustive process. Europe took 4 years before it rolled out DMA. Let's not forget that. The other suggestion would be to reinstate the specialist appeals tribunal we had. We had something called the COMPAT. It was rolled into the NCLAT. That has delayed proceedings across the board. The third one would be to have commitments and settlements actually being used in a very flexible manner. And finally, we have the power of interim reliefs. It should be used where needed. If the IT sector is a sector where a new law could be suggested, then why not use these powers more effectively there?
All right. So use the existing law. Siddarth Pai, in one word, do you think that SSD's, definition being expanded and much lower thresholds being put for the wider net of CCI under the new rule, will that be a worry?
It definitely will, because I think every day it becomes a Goliath over time, for that matter. So whichever views are there as of now, whichever news are now may end up being later. We need to have something that's actually global and actually is significant. Our definition of significant should align with global powers, can't actually diverge them.
That's right. It's actually, there are no boundaries when it comes to the digital world. And therefore, we have to align all our regulations to the digital world globally as well. Thank you so much, Siddarth, Bisu, as well as Dinoo and Naval for joining in on this very interesting discussion. And thanks to all our viewers for tuning in.